Hey guys, it's Brandon Paul, and in today's lesson I'm going to show you 8 open chords. Okay, so these 8 open chords are used throughout millions of songs. So there's going to be 5 major chords and 3 minor chords. The first chord we're going to do is a C chord. This is potentially the most common chord in music if there had to be one chosen. And for this one, you're going to have your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret A string, your middle finger on the 2nd fret D string, and your 1st finger is going to go on the 1st fret on the B string. And you're going to strum all of the strings except for the low E string. Should sound like that. Now when you're playing some of these chords, there's a good chance that your fingers aren't strong enough yet, and some of the strings might be blocked. It might even sound like this. Kind of stuff like that. But in order to correct that, try to keep your fingers as pointy as possible. So instead of slanted, like in a downward, try to keep them a little bit more pointy like this. That should help you clean up the chords a lot more. Okay, so the next chord we're going to do is an A chord. Now with this chord, it's interesting because you have 3 fingers on the same fret. They're on 3 different strings, but they're squeezed in on the same fret. So with this one, I use my middle finger on the D string 2nd fret. I use my 3rd finger on the 2nd fret on the G string, and I use my pinky on the 2nd fret on the B string. Now, you'll see people playing this in different ways. Some people actually play it like that with their 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I like to play it with my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and I know a lot of players do as well. So it's really up to you for comfort and how you like to play it. So let's try it like this for now. And once you got your fingers in the right place, you're going to play all strings except for the low E again, just like C. Just like that. And again, try to keep your fingers pointy and not slanted. That's always going to be a tip whenever you play chords. And another way you can double check your chords to see if they're really clear is to go through each string individually. So you get just like that. Okay, so let's go to the next one. We're going to go to a D chord. It should look and sound like this. Now a D chord, you're going to use your 1st finger on the 2nd fret on the G. You're going to use your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret on the B. And you're going to use your middle finger on the 2nd fret on the high E. This one can be kind of tricky if you've never played it before, but you'll get it really fast. Once you got those in position, you're going to play these 4 strings. The D, the G, the B, and the E. So you're not going to play the E and the A. And you have to be really careful with that when you're playing a lot of these open chords, especially on acoustic. Because if you play some of the strings that don't belong, it gets really muddy and flubby. So for instance, if I play a D chord with all of the strings, it doesn't necessarily sound bad, but it doesn't sound as good and as clear as this. Right? Okay. So now we're going to do an E chord. So this is another really popular chord in music. You're going to see this quite a bit. So we got our middle finger on the 2nd fret on the A. We got our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret on the D. And our 1st finger is on the 1st fret on the G string. And with this one, this is awesome because we can just strum all the strings and not worry about hitting any wrong ones. Just like that. And again, I always keep my fingers pointy so they're not blocking any other strings and everything is crystal clear. Okay, so the last major chord I'm going to show you is a G major. Now G major is a bit of a selective chord because you can play G many different ways. There's probably about 3 to 4 different ways you can play it. And depending on the song that you're playing, you'll want to try it in the different ways. But for today's lesson, we're going to play it like this. So I got my middle finger on the 3rd fret on the E string. I have my first finger on the 2nd fret on the A string. I have my 3rd finger all the way up here on the B string 3rd fret. And I have my pinky on the high E on the 3rd fret. And this one might be a little bit harder on your hands at first, but try to find an angle with your thumb in the back or with your wrist to what feels comfortable. Some people play it with their thumb a little bit more over. Some people pull their hand a little bit back, and that helps them stretch out. So whatever's most comfortable for you is what you should do. So once again, once you have all the fingers in the right place, you're going to strum all the strings. And you should hear some of these other ones ringing out clear because you have the D and the G. Those are open in this. They shouldn't be blocked like this. Right? So if I keep my fingers pointy like all the other ones, it should come out nice and clear like that. Okay, so now we're going to do the 3 minor chords. All right? So we're going to start with A minor. A minor is a great chord. I love this one. So it's actually similar to playing an E major chord, but we're moving everything up a string or down depending on how you like to look at it. But so with an A minor, we start with our middle finger on the 2nd fret on the D. Our 3rd finger goes on the 2nd fret on the G. And our 1st finger goes on the 1st fret on the B string. And we're strumming all of them except for the low E. So you want these 5. And as always, you want to make those fingers really pointy. That's an A minor right there. Okay, now we're going to go to E minor, and this is actually a pretty easy transition. You're just going to move your middle and your 3rd down a string or up, depending on how you look at it. And you're going to take your 1st finger off, and then you can play all the strings. And that's an E minor right there. So once again for E minor, middle finger goes on the 2nd fret on the A, 3rd finger goes on the 2nd fret on the D. And I'm keeping my hand pretty spread out for the most part. I've seen a lot of students when they do this chord in the very beginning stages, they keep their palm a little bit closer and it blocks the top strings. You might get that. So try to keep it fairly spread out when you do this. And as like a final reminder for all of these chords, again, you want to keep them pointy, but you want to push down a fair amount too. Not too hard to where your hand is gripping really hard, but for a lot of these, you may need to push down just a little bit harder to get the sound clear, especially if you're playing on an acoustic guitar, which I am today. All right, so the 8th and final chord that I'm going to show you is going to be a D minor chord. That's the last of the minor chords that I'll show you in this. So with this one, you want your middle finger on the 2nd fret on the G, and you want your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret on the B, and your 1st finger goes on the 1st fret on the high E. And you're going to strum these 4 strings, the D, the G, the B, and the E. Just those 4. Remember, if you hit some of the other strings that shouldn't be in there, it gets a little bit kind of flubby and you can't really articulate each of the notes. So if I were to play all the strings, doesn't necessarily sound bad, but it's not the best. So if we play those, the correct 4, it should sound like that. All right, guys. Thank you for viewing this lesson on the 8 open chords. Once you have all these down, it's going to make learning thousands of songs so much easier. And the majority of songs that you even hear, like on the radio or by your favorite artist, I can guarantee you they're more than likely using a lot of these chords. So I'll see you in the next lesson.